All right, so what we're going to be discussing here is the body's position that we get to the moment our front foot gets into the ground for the very first time. And this moment in time is called our foot strike. So we are going to be talking about the moment when, boom, those feet get into the ground for the very first time. And again, that's called our foot strike position. At foot strike, we want to be looking at our body in two halves. Our upper half and our lower half. At foot strike, we want our lower half to have rotated forward towards our target. And a useful thing to look at to know if we've been able to do that is the belt buckle. And is that belt buckle facing the target? If the belt buckle is facing the target, it's a pretty good chance that we have successfully rotated both the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip. When we're able to rotate the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip, as our front foot is getting into that foot strike position, we will successfully be able to get our belt buckle driving towards the target. If we specifically take a look at just the back foot of these four guys, let's watch as they are rotating that back leg, how that back foot is rotating. At this point in time, all four guys still have their entire foot flat onto the ground, and then they begin to rotate through or over top of their big toe. Their foot kind of rolls, folds over, or drives forward. And as the foot does that motion, we now shift our view to the back knee and know as the foot is rolling over the big toe, that the back knee is also rotating forward. And how those two things, the back foot and the back knee, are working together. We can also see that as we go to drive and rotate that back foot and back knee, how they do that while they gain ground down the mound and towards their catcher. So this is the difference between rotating our bodies forward, or a word for that is driving ourselves forward, versus just rotating in place. If we were just rotating in place, our bodies would not be able to gain this ground down the mound. Our bodies wouldn't be able to accelerate our power and energy down the mound. And we can then look and see that the foot has the toe, and then the heel is in front of the toe, meaning we have rotated forward. We then go to the upper body, the upper halves, from the waist up, and we want to separate that upper body from the lower body. We want the direction that our hips are facing, which is to the target, to be separate from the direction our shoulders are facing. So we notice we can see the Giants, the Padres, the Pirates, and his number. We can see the Phillies, and we can see the Brewers or Milwaukee. I'm not sure what they have displayed on their jerseys there. So the direction of their lower bodies is to the target, and the direction of their shoulders is still facing, for these right-handers, towards third base, or the direction they have been the entire time. So we rotate the lower body first, then we get into foot strike, then we rotate our upper body second. And the more that we can get those lower bodies to fully rotate to the target by the time that front foot hits the ground, and we've also been able to keep that upper body from rotating and staying back, we will have created as much upper lower half separation or hip shoulder separation as possible. And the more hip shoulder separation or upper lower half separation we can create, the more power we're going to be able to produce, and the amount of stress that's put on our arm is going to be reduced. What we're also going to notice is that almost regardless of your arm slot, if we have a true 3/4, low 3/4, high 3/4, an over-the-top arm slot, or anything in between those, we're always going to find ourselves in a relatively 90 degree angle, meaning from our elbow across to our other shoulder, we want to think is nice and even. 90 degrees in that armpit. We also want to think 90 degrees in that elbow. We want this type of arm position, that 90-90, we'll call it, at the moment of foot strike. When our arm has loaded up to this position here at the moment of foot strike, and the upper body has not rotated yet, our body's rotation will accelerate the throw forward. If the arm is not in this 90-90 position, the body's rotation forward is going to be less than ideal and in sync with how the arm will flow after the body goes. So we're looking for this 90-90-ish position in that throwing arm at foot strike. What we can also notice at foot strike is, where is this glove at? It's in front of the body by the rib cage. We're not letting it, if we're thinking here's some water, don't drown the glove. Don't let your glove get wet. Don't drown that glove. This one right here is a little too high. Should be more towards the belt. Okay. When the glove gets finished into the body like this, it's able to help keep this front shoulder in line, meaning it's not going to open up early. Because if that front shoulder starts to open up early, that's going to start to pull the back shoulder forward early. And now we would not have separated our upper and lower halves as much, because the angle of the shoulders would begin to rotate forward, which would be more matching the angle of the hips. The final thing we're going to look at is this front leg. We see all these guys have different degrees of bend in their front legs. But what we're going to notice is that as the upper body now rotates to throw, we need to make our front leg become a firm fixture of which we can rotate around. So thinking about this front leg here turning into a flagpole. My flagpole is always going to be strongest if it's straight. Or at least I can't have my flagpole move forward while my body is trying to rotate forward. So we'll redraw these little outlines here, and we will have these guys. Oh man, that's all right. It's going to get back to it anyway. Boom. And now we'll watch as they go to throw. How that leg is locking out, stiffening up, straightening out. So that now that leg is here. Now that leg is here. Now that leg is here and here. From the bend, straightening it out. And what we can notice is as that leg locks out, stiffens up, straightens out, becomes that firm flagpole, notice how that upper body is able to catapult itself out in front and down more. Able to get out in front more. Out in front more. So that way, if we look, we can't get everyone exactly at release, but ball just out, ball just out, ball is coming out, ball is slightly a little bit more out than the bottom two. But we're able to look at this angle of the chin to the waist, back out to the front foot, boom, boom, boom. Just how out in front of themselves they're getting. And that's because of that front leg's ability to lock out. So we can see that they're starting, boom, boom, there, and there. So now it's not just the arm throwing the ball down. It's the body throwing the ball down. It's the body going down with the throw. Body accelerating down. And as the body's accelerating down, the lower half is firming up. So that way, as I need to finish all this violent rotation, I have the ability to do that around that firm front leg. I have that ability to rotate around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my back leg around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my hips around. I can finish all that violent rotation out of my back shoulder around, giving my arm plenty of time to slow down and giving the back muscles, my scapular muscles, all the time they need to activate and slow down that rapidly accelerating arm. All right, we're gonna let your video play here 2 times, bud. First time will be all one motion so you can see what you look like synced up from 2 points of view. The second time we'll pause it at that foot strike position so that way we can compare and contrast the things that you just learned and heard with those big leaguers. And then we can see what things we're going to want to tweak to help improve this delivery of yours. So there we are at foot strike. So we cut that body into 2 halves, upper half, lower half. We'll start with that upper half. We're in a fantastic position here. We look at the throwing arm, and we got that 90-ish degree angle. We got that glove finished directly in front of those rib cage, keeping it out of the water and keeping it within our body. And we can see that those shoulders are still facing the same direction they have been, and they have not yet begun to rotate to the target. That's because at foot strike, the only part of our body we want rotated is that lower half. When we get that lower half rotated at foot strike and that upper half stays back, we're creating that upper lower half separation. And right now we can see back hip has come driving forward, driving forward, driving forward. We see that easily over here. Bam, bam, bam. Front leg in a fantastic position to be ready to turn into a firm flagpole, of which we can violently rotate all of this locked and loaded upper body around. We look at the back foot and back knee to see how we rotated into this position. And we can see there goes the back knee, back knee, back knee. And then that back foot doing a real good job of staying connected right there. So Noah, this would be a good one for you to take a look at with comparisons, is just seeing how well that back foot stays up against that pitching rubber. So that way we can rotate through that big toe. We can rotate through that big toe into our foot strike. A lot of really, really good things going on with the lower half of your delivery. Everything is going really well with your upper half. The only thing that I have, actually there's two little things that I have suggestions for you. One is going to potentially help you create more power. The other one is going to be something that's going to just come along naturally as you get more and more experience being on a mound. But I just want to bring it to your attention so you can start to kind of have it in the back of your mind every time you hop up on that mound. Okay? The one thing that I think is going to help you create more power is if we think about this back knee staying back for a little bit longer as your body continues to go down the mound. So what we're going to see is as your body is traveling down the mound, we're going to see that your back knee is almost constantly going inwards. So as your back knee falls in or down towards the target, your body is also going down towards the target. So you can kind of see how those are both going together. If we were able to get the upper body to go a little bit further before that, now that I'm saying that, you're pretty far out there already right there. Boy. We may be nitpicking there with the back knee staying back a little bit longer. It definitely could, but we're not going to have a whole lot of things that we're going to be changing in your delivery, bud. So we might as well try to work on that for a little bit to help us create some more power. Let me just show you some good examples of that. Manual Class A, closer for the Guardians. We'll just watch how, even though his body is going out, how that back knee is staying back. It's not starting to fold inwards yet. It's able to stay back, and now he rotates forward. Now he gets to rotate forward. Same upper body position as you. Same visual snapshot of the lower body. He just had a little bit more late rotation. Late rotation on that back leg compared to yours is just a little bit earlier. And when it's early, it's going to happen for a longer period of time. And when it's early and long, it's not going to be able to create as much violence and power. Let's pull another guy up for you to see that on. Let's look for another high velo guy for you. It's a lefty, so let's not do that, even though it's no difference. The Cuban Missile. So just watch his back knee as his body goes down the mound, how that back knee is just kind of staying back. And now it rotates forward. Now it rotates forward. Now it rotates forward. So this thing about trying to keep it back a little bit longer, we're going to be able to create a little bit more rotational force, rotational power out of our lower body. Oh, here we go. Johan Duran, like 102, almost it seems like, average velo on his fastball. Is a guy that keeps it back, but doesn't keep it back super long. So it's not saying that you have to keep that back knee back for a long time to create power, because Duran's a guy who back knee staying back, but now it's kind of already going in. So it's not a one size fits all on that. I just think that maybe we try that with you and see if you feel like you're creating more power, trying to keep that back knee back a little bit longer, prevent it from this falling in path a little longer. So that way the knee stays here for a split second longer before it starts to get itself down to here. And then it stays there a split second longer before it gets itself down to here. So that way, once we're really ready to rotate, we have more rotation to go with instead of just that much rotation to go with. And then the final thing that, like I said, this is just going to come with experience of being on the mound more and more, is having your ankle anticipate the slope of the mound. And we know that that mound is sloping down, but your foot is sloping up. So now when we land, we're going to land like a gator chomp. Womp. We're going to have to chomp down. Boom. 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 There are guys everywhere in the big leagues that are heel to foot. It's just not as drastic as this. But again, those guys have been on mounds for longer than you've been alive. So as we continue to get more and more used to the mound, your ankle is going to be able to anticipate the slope of the mound more. So that way, instead of having it flexed up, it'll be more relaxed, and then it'll land maybe heel still first, but it'll be a lot quicker before those toes get in the ground. Other than that, dude, we do a lot of really good, powerful things in this delivery of yours. I'm excited to see what we can do to help create more velo and more movement in your pitches. All right, bud. We're going to let your video play through here 2 times. First time will be all one motion, so you can see what you look like start to finish from 2 points of view. And then the second time, we'll pause it at that foot strike position so we can compare and contrast your body's positioning to that of the big leaguers that we just talked about. And then we can see how you got in and out of that position to identify anything that we could tweak to help enhance this delivery. So at that point of foot strike, we said we want to separate our body into 2 halves, upper lower half. We can look at that back foot by the toe and then the heel. That tells us right there we definitely have rotated forward. We look at that kneecap going right down into that mound, shows a good amount of rotation forward, which definitely is driving that back hip forward. If we weren't black on black and we had some difference between those two, we would be able to see that that belt buckle is in fact going to the target. From this side view, that's very apparent because that back hip is going forward. We take that back and boom, boom, boom. There's that back hip driving forward as we're getting into foot strike. Front leg is putting itself in a good position to be able to be strong and stable as we violently rotate everything down, around, and through. We go backwards in time and watch that back knee get rotated forward. We watch the back foot. And we kind of notice that the back foot, especially if we look at the front view here, we're going to notice how the back foot's going up on the tippy toes. Toe, 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 boom. And now if we zoom back out and took that to here, we can see we haven't quite begun to rotate yet. And the main thing we've done is just kind of go up onto our toes, meaning our body's natural drift is going to start going this way. It's going to start going off this way a little bit, which puts us into a slight throwing across our body position, which is not any issue, not anything that we have to worry about. We aren't so far across our body that we're turning into like an Andrew Miller, right? We're in a good position here. If we weren't going up on the tippy toes so much, I would imagine that instead of the foot being here, I would probably bet it would be like here. Still slightly across your body, but just maybe like 1 foot widths less than what we currently are. But again, we're in a good spot. We move to the upper body. We look at that gloves in a great position. Like we said, we want it not getting wet in the water, and we want to make sure that it's staying in between our body here, up against that rib cage. Also, we then go to the throwing arm, and we can just notice that we got our 90 in the elbow, but we are sub 90 in that armpit. We need to think about, and this leads us to our first cue, is when we load this arm up, we already have it pretty darn close here. Now we got to think about loading the arm up, flipping that arm back into external rotation from this positioning of your arm. If that arm just flipped up right there, we'd be golden. But instead, we're going to notice that it kind of drops down as it's flipping up. As the hand's flipping up, the elbow's going down. We need to keep that elbow up as the hand flips up. So that way we're more in that 90-90 position with that arm, rather than this like 45-90 that you got right now. Because when we get this elbow down here, what's going to end up happening is it's going to have to kind of get lifted up as we throw. It's going to have to get really lifted up as we throw. And now a lot of our energy is going up when we need to make this throw go down. So if that elbow was more in line with here when we were back this way, as we rotate around, yeah, we would still have a high 3/4 arm slot, but we wouldn't feel like we need to get this type of tilt to get there. And the reason that I believe your body is getting this type of tilt is with the effort to raise this elbow up as you're rotating around. So if this elbow was already up, I don't think we would have to tilt anymore as we rotated around, which would clean up some command consistency and definitely going to help with spin consistency on the ball, which will lead to better movement, better consistent movement, more movement potentially even, because our body's not going away from the ball. We're staying through it more. So our hand will stay on the ball longer. So instead of the ball being out here of our hand, maybe the ball could be like out here in the hand. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but that could be the difference between like a 0.5 mile an hour or an extra inch or two on our movement. And then the only other thing that I would suggest, and this is more of a comfort and feel thing, is let's just allow this glove to travel just a little bit further away. Right? We got 90-degree angle in the elbow, and then notice how it extends away after that. And now it's getting kind of bigger as it goes out. I think because it's so tight here, you don't feel comfortable. You need to lengthen out some. And when you lengthen out, you've been held here for so long that this is more of a finish position. And then you lengthen out, and now you're wanting to finish that glove, but the glove's energy is going away from your body, away from your body, away from your body. Instead of it at a constant rate going away from your body, and then kind of holding in place as the body catches up to it. So we just want to think about, let the glove travel. And a way to think about that is just allow that elbow extension to occur a little bit earlier. So that way we already have it being extending out, and then it bends in, and then it bends out again. So if we can find a little bit better way to have this glove get separated as it moves away from the throwing arm, if we can find a better path for it, a better way to travel, rather than it being in a 90, getting to almost 180, back to a 90, and then back out to like a 110. It doesn't need to be the same the entire time by any means, but let's just try to find a way for it to flow a little bit smoother, and instead of having to go through one position, two positions in terms of angle of the elbow, 1, 2 to 3 to 4, and they're kind of going 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's see if we can't just make it 1 to 2, and then we're done at finish, instead of 1, 2, 1, 2 finish. Other than that, dude, your body does a lot of things really well, especially at the end of our throw as we finish it and rotate through release. That front leg does a good job of locking out. That upper body does a good job of driving things down. Your back hip does a good job of finishing its rotation all the way through. And your body does a good job of stacking itself back up, stacking your trunk back up after release. So everything post-release, your body does probably best on the squad. We just need to clean up a couple things beforehand in terms of our upper body limbs to help get everything that the body does in terms of flowing with power to be more smooth. And then just thinking about that back foot heel staying on the ground a little longer, so that way we can rotate things forward instead of things lifting up and then trying to spin it forward. All right, bud, so your video is going to play here 2 times. The first time will be all one motion, so you can see what you look like from multiple views. And then the second time we'll pause it at that foot strike position so we can compare and contrast the things we just heard and learned in those big league examples to where your body is at that position and how you've gotten into that position. So there we are at foot strike. First thing that probably is jumping to your attention is how much this upper body has rotated forward already at that moment of foot strike. And what we just learned is that we're trying to have only our lower half rotate forward while the upper half stays back, or getting our hips to face the catcher while the logo on our chest continues to face towards third base dugout. Because our body, specifically the upper half, is out of sync, that's going to have an impact on our power, on our command, and on our arms' overall health long term. And that is because from this position, now it's time to throw, and we are left with very minimum upper body rotation to help throw that arm forward. And instead, now you're going to have to use this arm and move it forward to try to get that ball to be thrown. Another way to look at that is as we play it through, we can see how we talked about that body wanting to gain ground as we're throwing and getting ourselves out in front. We're really trying to do it. This leg is locking out really good. We're really trying to get this upper body out in front. So after foot strike, our body is doing a lot of good things. We're driving that body forward and down some to help get that arm out in front. This leg's turning into that good flagpole. We just need to supply your body with more power before that foot gets down. So that way these things that you're doing well after that foot gets down can have more power behind it. And in order to do that, we need to prevent the upper body from rotating too early. And some things that are going to help us along the way is going to be to think about, I'm starting in this tall position. I want to stay in this tall position because if I can start strong, I can stay strong. So right now I'm starting tall, I'm starting strong. Let's stay tall like we are right here. We're still strong. Now we can see if we just drew this line here, boom, how we're no longer tall no more. Now we're leaning over here. And now if I'm leaning over here more and more and more as I go out, it's going to make it real hard for my lower body to rotate forward on time. And also, this body position is going to have to get back to where it was in order for me to throw. So it's hard for my lower body to rotate on time, and it's making it hard for my upper body to not want to rotate because it started here, it got to here, and now watch where it's going to go. Boom. It's trying to get back up again. So that means it's really going this way, which is towards the direction of your shoulders now rotating in that direction. So if we could start tall and strong and stay tall and strong, then our shoulders wouldn't drop down over here. So then we wouldn't have to bring them back over here. And then that would help us keep our shoulders from wanting to rotate over here early. Next thing we want to think about is I want to be less, what's going on here? I want to be less jumpy down the mound. And we're going to notice that right here. Less jumpy. Less jumpy and more rotational. So instead of this back leg jumping away from the pitching rubber, looking back at those big league videos, we want to rotate away from the pitching rubber. Instead of jumping away, we want to rotate away. That's going to also help us create some power. And the final thing we want to think about is, let's get this foot down first, and then we'll rotate around. We said that's going to be easier with a start tall, start strong, stay strong mindset. But we also want to be thinking about keep my shoulders sideways here until I feel that foot hitting the ground. Then I can rotate it around. Because if your foot right now was in the ground, our upper body would look almost identical to all those big league videos we just saw. But because we're jumping, that upper body starts to rotate too soon. So if we're not jumping and we're rotating more, and we start tall, stay tall, that should ultimately help us with that final thing of foot down, then rotate. But all in all, your body does a lot of things that are trying to create a lot of power. You're exploding off of the back leg. It's just we need to explode off that back leg in a little bit different type of fashion. That front leg does a real good job of getting out in front and then trying to turn into that flagpole for us. We can just see we lose that flagpole a little bit right there. It bends. We see think about continuing to hold that flagpole, and we'll be able to continue to rotate around it. But because our flagpole breaks forward, it breaks forward, we will now fall forward. But if that flagpole remained firm, we would be able to continue to rotate around it like we saw those big leaguers do. So there's a lot of things you do really good at the end, a couple things we can clean up at the end, but a lot of things you do at the end really well. We just need to clean up the things we do in the beginning to help the things that you do at the end well create more power at the point of our throw. All right, we'll let your video play here through 2 times. First time will be all one motion so you can see what you look like from multiple points of view. And then the second time we play it, we'll pause it at that foot strike position. So that way you can see the position your body's in compared to what we just learned with the big leaguers. And then we can talk about what we want to tweak with your delivery to help make it more efficient and therefore more powerful. So there's that foot strike position. And like we talked about, we want to split the body into 2 halves, upper half, lower half. Let's take a look at this front view here first, and let's focus on the lower half. And let's just look at this front leg. We got this front kneecap not going towards the target. And when this occurs and this knee has not fully rotated around, we are now stuck in a position where this leg is blocking us. We need this to think about this being a gate. We don't want to fly the gate open. We just want to get it open. Right now, your gate is closed. We need to think about getting this kneecap going to our catcher more. And we're going to notice that in order for you to throw this ball, in order for your upper body to rotate around, we're going to see how much this shoulder is going to have to really yank out over here to help yank this knee out over here just to start to get this backside shoulder to rotate forward. So here we go. We're going to watch as the knee swivels. Or first we'll watch the shoulder really start to peel out. Boom, there goes that shoulder. Boom, there goes that shoulder. Why is that shoulder doing that? Well, it's doing that because that's what's helping get this knee to open itself up. It's what's doing to get the gate to open. So instead of relying on this shoulder to fly open to get the knee to go where it should be going, we need to just rotate this leg by using the knee more. Right now, we're just kind of putting the foot out in front without rotating that leg. Excuse me. So let's see if we can find a reason as to why this front knee is not wanting to rotate on time. And what is on time? When that foot strikes the ground at foot strike. Okay, so at foot strike, this knee has not rotated around yet. So now we got to figure out why. Well, if we watch how the back leg is rotating, as the back leg is rotating, we're not really getting it going forward. What I mean by that is our back hip isn't able to drive forward. Our back hip really drives forward after foot strike. Watch what else is really happening after foot strike. The amount of rotation in the back knee and the amount of rotation in the back foot. Boom. Boom. We want to look to get more towards this type of positioning at the moment of foot strike. So if we were thinking about rotating our knee and back foot earlier, maybe that would help us rotate the front knee earlier. Or what we can just think is when I feel my back knee going, I need to feel my front knee going. I need to feel that front knee going. Back knee's going, but the front knee is not. Front knee is not. So if I can get my knees to sync up and rotate together, that could also help get my front leg to rotate on time. So that's one of our cues. Get our front kneecap to the catcher. Let's work backwards and look at our set position. Right now, we got our feet super close together, and we're just kind of standing tall. We want to think about getting into a strong loaded position with our weight back. So what I would like to see is this foot slide out a little bit further away from your back foot. I would like this bend that you have in this back knee to remain the same. We're going to keep this front leg straight, and we're going to put 60-65% of our weight in this back hip, and the remaining amount of that weight in this front hip. That way, when we lift this leg up, we can start in a strong position, and we can get ourselves going sooner and more aggressively. If I'm also starting in a stronger position, that may also help me rotate more aggressively. And if I'm rotating with my back leg more aggressively, it's probably going to complete that rotation faster. And if the back leg is rotating faster and sooner, we can say that that's going to help the front leg rotate faster and sooner. And our main thing that we need to focus on right now is that front leg getting rotated sooner. And the final thing that we're going to want to think about is at that foot strike position, what we talked about in the big league videos pertained with the upper half was where our throwing arm gets loaded up to. And we said with the big league video examples, we want our throwing arm to get loaded up to a 90-90-ish position. And right now we can just see that your elbow is pretty far beneath our shoulder. So we don't have that 90-degree angle in our armpit. If we move this forward just a little bit in time, we have that 90-degree in our elbow, but we don't have it in our armpit. So what we need to think about is your arm path is fine. Your arm path is good. Your elbow gets to a height that is close to your shoulder height, but as the hand flips up, and let me use the non-pause one, as your hand is flipping up, the elbow is dipping down. We want to think about that elbow staying up as the hand flips up. And that will get us more into that 90-90 position, which then as we rotate around, will allow this to flow smoother, better, more in sync, which will dramatically reduce the amount of stress being put on it, leading to a healthier arm. Another thing that's going to help lead to a smoother, healthier arm is when the front shoulder doesn't feel like it has to yank out in order to get this to start coming through. This meaning the backside, the throwing arm. When the front shoulder doesn't feel like it has to peel out to help bring the throwing arm through, that's going to help our arm's health as well. That's going to help our arm's power and its command. So the three main things that we want to think about is start strong, stay strong. That means more weight on the back leg than the front leg. Then we want to think about feeling when the back knee rotates, the front knee is also rotating. So that way when it gets into foot strike, this knee is not in this angle position and then gets to this position. But when it lands, it's already in this type of position. And then third and finally is when that foot gets down, we want that 90-90 position. So that means as this arm is loading up, as it flips up, we need to make sure that elbow is also up. Right now that elbow is down. We look at the glove. The glove wants to be in a great spot. That shoulder, those elbow wants to be in a good spot for you. It's just the fact that this knee is not in a good spot, that they have to do something that they shouldn't to get this in a position that it should. So if this knee starts to clean up, then this peel of the shoulders will no longer have to exist. And this good, clean finish of the glove that you have will continue to help you send all that energy and power down that mound. Your body's ability to rotate around with those hips coming through is a really good job. Good mobility in the hips there. One thing to think about is notice how the knee kind of gives out there at the end. That front knee bends more. That front knee bends more. That's when we kind of fall forward at the end. When I think about our flagpole, staying a firm flagpole as we continue to rotate all the way around. So that way we can continue to finish around versus getting around and then falling forward. Getting around and then falling forward versus continuing around. And in order to do that, we just need our flagpole to stay firm. All right, dude. We're going to let your video play here through 2 times. The first time will be all one motion so you can see what you look like synced up from 2 points of view. And then the second time, we will pause it at that foot strike position that we just got done learning about in the big league talk. And then we'll discuss things that we want to do to tweak your delivery to help maximize its efficiency. So here we are at that foot strike position. And like we talked about in the big league video, we want to think about separating the body into 2 halves, the upper half and the lower half. Let's start with the upper half for you. Look at that throwing arm. We talked about getting into that 90-90 position, which we do a really good job of here. So that means as the shoulders go to rotate to throw, this arm should be able to flow right behind with it. We can also see that you're doing a good job of keeping the shoulders squared off and not rotated at foot strikes. So that way we're looking right down our shoulder. The one thing we may potentially want to look at and address is this glove and how low it has gotten. If it doesn't drop any lower than this as we rotate through, we'll be fine. We won't have to think about it. But if it kind of keeps dropping down and keeps going out, then it may be something that starts to affect that front shoulder, which will then affect how we rotate to throw. If we're rotating on this axis or if we're rotating on this axis. Now, let's shift our focus to the lower half. We look at the back foot and the way it's positioned, we can see the toe, the heel, which means it's gone forward. We look at this back knee, it appears as if it is rotated forward. It's hard to tell where that belt buckle is at because these pants are just so bright or so black and my camera wasn't all that focused on you. It's hard with the netting back there. But it looks like the back hip is trying to rotate itself forward. If we rotate, or if we slide this back and we go forward, back and forth, we can see that that back foot is starting its rotation. We would say it's probably like 60-65% of its way through before that front foot gets into foot strike. If we continued out of foot strike, we can see where that last 35-40% of that rotation is occurring. And the last bit of the rotation is also the most explosive part of the rotation. But all in all, the backside legs timing is as good as it possibly can get considering what this front leg is doing, or rather what it is not doing. And what it's not doing is getting itself rotated. And we can see the direction that your kneecap is going. Also the direction of your foot, but that's a very minor aspect of this. It's where the knee is going. There's no way this knee can go in this direction and we expect our upper body to be able to rotate in this direction. In fact, what's going to have to happen is that this leg is going to go from this angle here and it's going to have to get more in line with your hip, your knee, and your foot are going to need to get more in line before your upper body is able to rotate the throw. So we'll watch this front leg here. We'll even zoom in so we can watch that knee specifically. Okay. And let's just watch how this knee, as we continue this throw, boom, It's got to get straight before we can throw. So now the front leg is bowing out, swiveling out. It's not that firm flagpole anymore. It's a spinny flagpole. It's a wobbly flagpole. And now if my flagpole is wobbling and leaning and tilting, my flag, if it's trying to violently rotate around, it's going to have its path slightly altered and manipulated each and every time. And not only is it going to get manipulated each and every time, how it gets manipulated is going to be different each and every time. So our ability to have consistent command is going to be very difficult to achieve when this front leg does not get itself fully rotated by the time that front foot hits the ground. As you can see, your leg has the ability to get that knee going towards the target while that foot still stays on that angled position. And that's why I said, even though the kneecap and the foot appear to be going in the same direction, it wasn't the foot's fault that the leg wasn't in its proper position. It's the knee's fault. So what we need to think about is we need to use this knee to move the leg. We need to rotate the knee out more so that way when we land, that leg is in a better, straighter, in-line positioning. So that's one of our main cues. Once that gets more rotated, that's going to allow this to get more rotated. And then this will definitely get more rotated. And this will definitely get driven more. So then we're going to be able to create maximum upper lower half separation. Right now, because of this knee being on the inside of our body and not in line with our body, we are minimizing the amount of our upper lower half separation. Let's go back to how we're coming set. We look here and we can see most of our body's weight is over this front foot. This front foot happens to be the one that's got to get raised up in the air. If I'm going to raise this foot up, I can't have most of my body weight on that leg, because watch what's going to happen. In order for you to get your leg up, our whole body is going to have to shift back. And now a good, intelligent base runner at first base is going to be able to see your body having to rock back, rock back, rock back, rock back. And he's going to be able to get into his secondary earlier. He's going to be able to start his steal sooner. So instead of having to rock back to get that leg up, we want to just already have that weight back. So for you to be able to achieve that, we're going to want this set position of our feet to be just a little bit closer. We're going to want this back leg to have this slight little bend that it has right now in it. And we're going to want this front leg to have no bend in it. So when that front leg has no bend and the back leg does have bend, that naturally shifts the weight back. And then when we get that foot a little bit closer, it's going to be easier to get even more of that weight back. Something to think about is like somewhere between like 55, 65, maybe 70% of my body's weight is on the back leg, and the remaining amount of that weight is on that front leg. That way, if we were more in this type of alignment when we came set, when we lift that leg, we're not having to rock back. And if we're not having to rock back, we're not having to use energy to stop that rock back to get ourselves redirected forward, which means we would have more power with that throw. So we want to think about our set position. Start strong, stay strong. Right now we're starting neutral. Oops, that was a terrible straight line. That wasn't even better. Right now we're starting neutral to get strong to lift our leg up. Let's start strong so we can stay strong. And then another thing that goes in line with the set position that happens right after is how we lift that leg. Right now, we're getting this foot kind of caught up underneath our butt. I would like you to think about raising your knee up rather than lifting your foot up. So if we thought about raising my knee up, this foot would stay more kind of dangling underneath it. Rather than getting caught up underneath your butt, it'd be more underneath your knee. That's not the most important thing, but it's also something that's relatively easy for us to start to change. And once you're able to start making some small changes, that's going to give your body confidence that you can make bigger changes. And what's a bigger change? The bigger change is getting this knee to rotate. That's a big change. Being able to lift your leg with your foot underneath the knee instead of lifting the foot up and having it underneath your butt, that's an easy change. Your set position, that's an easy change. Just feel that weight back more. Get yourself in front of a mirror. Look at the mirror this way. And when you lift your leg, do you see yourself rocking back towards second? If so, we got to get a better set position. Easy peasy. We do that while we're brushing our teeth. Lifting our leg up, making sure it dangles underneath, or lifting our knee up, making sure our foot dangles underneath our knee. Easy peasy. Same thing. Get in front of a mirror. We can do it while we brush our teeth. The rotating the knee, that's going to take lots of drills, and you will get that drill sent over to you. But what we could do right now to quickly show you that, right here, mute it. When you watch the video, you actually get to hear the demonstration of it. But we can just see I got this band anchored into the fence here, got it wrapped around my knee, and now that's that good position, the knee going forward. But I got to start it in the bad position. So let's pause it here, and the knee is going in this bad angle. We will go to you at your foot strike. Boom, yours is going in that same bad angle. Obviously, I'm left-handed, so you would be reversing this. You'd be having the band over here on this leg over here. But what am I doing? I'm in that bad bend, and I'm working on moving my knee, rotating my knee to get my whole leg underneath myself. Start with the bad angle that you're currently landing in and learn what you have to do differently to get it to be in the good angle. So this drill right here is big time for you. All right, bud, we're going to play your video 2 times here. First time will be all one motion, so you can see what you look like synced up from 2 points of view. Second time, we'll pause it at that foot strike position so we can compare and contrast some of the things that you just heard and learned in that big league talk. And then we can discuss things we're going to want to tweak to help enhance this delivery of yours. So at foot strike, we talked about that upper-lower half separation, having that lower body rotate towards the target while that upper body fights to stay back and separate itself from the direction that that lower body's going. So we can see that this front leg has gotten itself into what appears to be a pretty strong, stable position of which we will be able to eventually rotate around. We can see that the upper body has not begun to rotate yet, which is what we're looking for. However, this right here is a potential future issue. When that glove starts off over here and then gets way over here, we can see how that front shoulder, if we zoom in, how this front shoulder starts to open up. It's closed right now, and now it's starting to open up. The reason it's starting to open up is because this glove has gone so far this way that eventually that shoulder is going to get caught with it. And that's going to begin to affect the way in which we rotate to throw the baseball. We want to rotate back to front, but that requires the front not peel out. Because if the front peels out, then we'll begin to rotate out slightly. So the first thing we're going to want to think about is keep the glove inside of my shoulders. My elbow can get out there, but don't let the glove get out there. Keep that glove in line with my rib cage here. The second thing we want to think about is this lead leg here. We want to keep it closed as long as we possibly can. And you do a really good job of getting it closed. Your hips are closed, your front leg's closed. And then as soon as your body starts to go forward and that leg comes down, watch what this foot is doing. Watch where the foot is facing right now. It's going towards like shortstop or third baseman. And then as it's going down, boom, that's already into third base dugout. And then, boom, now it's already going towards third base on deck circle. And boom, now it's already open. Any type of rotation that we do in our throwing sequence that is gradually going is not going to be fast, explosive, and produce a lot of power. We instead need to think about leading with my heel. Keep my toe angling back, which will help keep my kneecap angled back. I want to keep this front hip closed for a long time, rather than this front hip getting open very quickly and early. So the first thing involves the glove, keeping that glove inside of my body versus allowing it to swoop out. The second thing is keeping my lead leg closed so that way it doesn't swoop out and open. And the final thing is finish my throw through rotation, which is going to be easier to achieve when that glove does not swoop out and when the front leg doesn't open early and gradually. It will be a lot easier to, when we finish this throw, have us rotate our body, not just to release, but continue to rotate our body through. We can see how those shoulders just kind of give up. Those hips just give up. Yeah, the back foot's coming around, but those hips aren't rotating around. We're just kind of walking that leg forward versus rotating things around. And one of the guys that we can use from your squad, I'm still learning names, so
we got that glove.
Not here. Not here. Is it Noah? Yeah. Okay. Let's watch Noah's front view here. Video play through here. Okay. And just watch this side view over here. And watch how as he throws, those shoulders keep rotating and this hip keeps rotating. Boom. So now his shoulders are over here. His belt buckle's over here. They're facing, with him being left-handed, they're facing third base dugout. Where did they start? They started by facing at first base dugout. They rotated 90 degrees to get towards release. Then they had to go beyond 90 degrees to actually get the ball out. And now I've rotated over 90 degrees. It's going to take me close to 90 degrees to slow it down. Not always. Sometimes less. But if I'm going super, super fast from 0 degrees to 90 degrees, it's pretty unrealistic to expect me to be able to stop at 0 degrees. It's like a car that is driving 100 miles an hour and they pass the finish line of the race, and that's when they slam on the brakes. Right now, they're going to and then maybe now they stop here. A car that's traveling 10 miles an hour crosses the finish line, slams on their brake, burp, they're going to come stop right here. We can use that same analogy, same thought process to how violently we rotate our shoulders. If we're able to just stop them right then and there after we get done releasing the ball, we probably have more rotation still in our body. We need to violently rotate those shoulders. Those shoulders rotating bring the arm through. The arm's not done being brought through, so we got to keep rotating those shoulders. Now the arm's coming across our body. Keep rotating those shoulders. Otherwise, we're going to be dealing with sore arms because that window of which we have to slow the arm down is short. You're 100 miles an hour, and then, boom, 0. You're just slamming on your brakes, slamming on your brakes, slamming on your brakes, slamming on your brakes. You're going to need new brakes really, really soon. Unfortunately, our arm doesn't work like car brakes, and we can't just throw some new ones on and be good to go. So the more that we can allow the body to keep rotating, that'll allow the arm to keep slowing down for more period of time, meaning that we are slowly coming to a stop instead of violently coming to a stop, violently coming to a stop, violently coming to a stop. We can slow it down, These breaks are going to last forever. These breaks only got a year or so in them before we're going to start to feel the wear and tear. So those are the main things. Keep leg closed longer, glove stays inside shoulders, and finish my throw through rotation. All right, man. We're going to let your video play here through 2 times. First time will be all one motion so you can see how you look synced up. And then the second time, we will pause it at that foot strike position so that way we can compare and contrast the things that we just learned in those big league examples. And then that way we can figure out what we want to do to help clean up this delivery of yours. So here we are at foot strike. And like we talked about, we want to separate that body into 2 halves, upper half, lower half. Let's first look at some things that we're doing well here. We got that throwing arm in a good 90-90 position, which means at the point of which when we go to rotate, this arm should be able to flow pretty smoothly. We look at this front leg, and it's in a position that should be pretty good at being able to get firm and a point of which we can rotate violently around. One thing that we want to draw our attention to is where this glove is at right now. And this glove started over here on this side of your body. And now it's on this side of your body, meaning it has traveled over here, meaning it's taking energy in this direction, which sooner than later, that glove going in this direction is going to start taking this shoulder with it. And that's what we call peeling open, flying open, opening up. We don't want that front shoulder to start to open up because that will start to pull the back shoulder forward, slowing down our rotation of the throw. And also, it will take our direction of our throw, direction of our energy, and start to redirect it where we don't want it to go. So something we're going to want to think about is as we separate our hands, right now we can see from your shoulder to your elbow is pretty much straight to the target. When we separate our hands, we want to get that shoulder to elbow more third base side of your body. So that way we're staying closed with our front shoulder. Because the longer we can keep this front shoulder closed, the more difficult it's going to be for it to open up. So what we can do to help us with that is think how I can position my glove to keep this closed. And I want to think about getting my thumb down and my palm out. When I get my hand into that position, that's going to raise my elbow up. And it's also going to help me extend my hand away from my body. Ultimately, getting our glove to be more closed off and being able to travel in a closed off direction longer. So that way when the foot hits the ground, boom, the glove is more in line with our body, like we talked about in the big league videos, versus it getting off over here where it currently is. Another thing that we notice at our foot strike position is that our belt buckle has just barely begun to rotate. We can also tell that because the back foot has not really rotated at all. And if the back foot hasn't really begun to rotate, that back knee can't go through a full rotation. And if 1 and 2 can't go through a rotation, 3 definitely can't get rotated, our hips. Our back hip can't get driven forward, and if that can't get driven forward, that means the belt buckle won't be going forward. So we need to think about getting this back leg to rotate sooner, because what we're going to know is after foot strike, is that it does rotate. The back knee does rotate. The back foot does turn over. It's just doing it too late. We need to think about rotating this back leg sooner. Okay? We also want to think about a good, strong set position. And what we're going to notice about your set position right now is that you got more weight over your front foot than your back foot. And your front foot is the one that has to come off the ground, which means all the weight that's on this front foot needs to get shifted to the back foot. And you guys are getting to the point now where base runners should be getting better and better, smarter and smarter, where if they have to read your heel coming off the ground to know if you're pitching or picking, that's a hard thing to pick up. But if they can pick up that you have to rock your body back, rock your body back, rock your body back to get that leg up, now they can start their secondary earlier. They can start their steal a little bit sooner. What's also going to happen is that as we rock it back, we're going to want to rock forward. And if we're just rocking forward, it's going to be hard to drive out forward, right? And what is drive out? Drive out is with his back leg. And what do we say your back leg is right now? It's late to the party. The party is rotated to the target at the moment of foot strike. Right now, we're not rotated to the target at foot strike. By the time we do get there, we're just late. So if I can start in a stronger, better set position, maybe I won't have to rock back so much, so I won't start to rock forward so much, which now if I'm rocking forward, I'm not able to control it as well, and I'm going to get into that moment of foot strike sooner than I should. Sooner here makes this later here. And right now, we said we're late back here. So by having a better, stronger set position is going to help make this rotate sooner a lot easier thing to get accomplished. And the final thing is our arm path. We want it to be flippy and whippy. And what that means is right now we can see as the ball falls out of your glove, it kind of instantly goes to, if we're looking at a clock, it very quickly gets to 7 o'clock. And now it goes to 8 o'clock. And then your hand goes to 9 o'clock. And then it gets to, as we can see, 10, 11, and now it's at 12 o'clock. So your arm has been doing this big, huge loop. Your arm is getting long and loopy. We want it to be whippy and flippy. So what we need to think about is we need to keep the hand down by 7 and 8 o'clock. We need to keep our hand down here for longer period of time during the arm's path. The elbow will still load up, but the hand will stay beneath the elbow. And if we just used one of your teammates as an example of this, okay, let's just go to Kellan, whose arm is down, and then it flips up. See how his hand stays at by 9 o'clock or lower for a lot longer period of time. And then it comes up. If we got some big league examples, let's pull up just some random guys here. Oh, I think we actually used him in our example. So it falls down, hand stays beneath the elbow. The elbow is up here and the hand's down here. We don't want the hand to get above the elbow until right before foot strike. That way it's flippy and whippy, flippy and whippy, flippy and whippy. Let's get another example of that for you. We got, let's see, someone that wasn't in our first videos. I know he's a lefty, but one of the better pitchers in our game. And that ball falls out of his glove. He's at 6, staying at 6. That elbow goes up towards 12, but that hand stays beneath the elbow until right before the foot hits the ground. So the hand gets whippy and flippy. Whippy and flippy and whippy and flippy. Versus it being a big ol' hand on the clock. Our clock, or our hand on the clock, reduces the whippiness. Yeah, we get the whippiness here, but we don't have it so much here. So we want to think about just get that arm to be a little bit whippier. And we're going to achieve that by not being a clock going all the way from 6 to 12. We want to be from 6 to 9 for a lot longer and stay there. So we want to think about our arm being dangling down this way versus our arm going up this way. So those are our 3 main things that we're going to focus on. All right, bud. I apologize that your side view is a little blurry. I didn't realize that when I was recording it, but we can still see what's what. First time through, all one motion. Second time through, we're going to pause it at that foot strike position that we just talked about with those big league videos, so that way you can see where your body's at comparatively to theirs. And then we can talk about some things that we're going to want to tweak to help make this delivery more efficient and powerful. So, at foot strike here, we cut that body into halves, upper half, lower half. We said at foot strike, we want the lower half to have been rotated forward, but the upper half to stay back and not be rotated. In our delivery over here from the front view, we can see the shoulders have begun to rotate, but just slightly have rotated already comparatively to where they could be right there. They have started to rotate forward, and we can tell because we can see that throwing arm already coming through. If we were still sideways, that ball would be directly behind your head, and we couldn't see it. But we know you're starting to rotate through because, boom, there's your arm. On our side views particular pitch, this one we have gone a lot further rotated with our upper body than the front view one. And so much so that we could say we are almost, here's where we started at 0 degrees. This would be 90 degrees. We can say we are closer to the 90 degree angle than we are the 0 degree angle. So that'll bring us to one of our first mechanical cues is, actually, no, we didn't even talk about that, did we? Okay. That is something that we want to think about, is making sure that we don't rotate our upper half until after the front foot hits the ground. So we want to think foot down, then rotate. Or another way to think of it is stay sideways until after the front foot hits the ground. Don't start opening up with those shoulders until after the foot gets into the ground. Let's look at some of the things, though, with the glove. We can see that it is staying in line with your body, and it is staying above your waist. So we are in a really good spot with that glove's location, which is going to help make sure that this front shoulder doesn't get unnecessarily peeled out because of where the glove is going. We also look at, right as we're getting into that foot strike, we're at that good 90 degree angle with our throwing arm, which as we then rotate the shoulders around, that should allow the arm to follow right behind it. Let's go backwards in time and notice our set position. We have both knees bent and our weight is very much in the middle, but in fact, it's more on the front foot because this front foot is already on the downward slope of the mound, where the back foot is on the flat part of the mound still. So even though our body is in the middle, it's actually more over here because of this foot being slightly lower than this foot. What we want to think instead is that this front leg straightens out. When we straighten this leg out, that will help us shift that weight more back. We also want to think about being in a tall position with our shoulders and head versus being in this bent over position with our shoulders and head. So we want to think about starting tall and starting strong with our weight back. That way we don't have to rock ourselves back to get that weight mostly on that back leg. Because good base runners are going to be able to pick this up. They're going to be able to see this rock back, and now they have the advantage in the running game. So we want to start with like 60, 65, 70% of our weight on the back leg and the remaining amount of weight on our front leg. And to be able to do that easiest, we keep a slight bend in the back knee and we have no bend in the front knee. After that, we want to think, get tall, don't be hunched over with my shoulders. The next thing we want to think about is this glove path being a little bit stronger. We said it gets into a good finish position, but that doesn't mean that the path that it takes to that finish position couldn't be better. And if we just look very quickly, it just kind of drops down, and that only is going to make your body want to hunch over more, right? We already got this hunch, and now my glove goes down here. That's going to make my body want to go down there as well. But when we go to throw, watch what's going to happen. Where's your chest going? It's in this angle position, and now it gets to this tall position. So if this is the position we're going to get into throw, being down here is not going to help us do that. So we might as well not even start in that position. So we want to start tall so we can stay tall. Something that's going to help us create power, and it's also going to be easier achieved with the stronger glove, and we're going to make that point here. What stronger means is I want to be thinking about gaining ground down the mound as my leg descends from its leg lift. So here we are at the top of the leg lift. So as this leg goes down, 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 we want the body to be gaining ground down the mound. But what we can see is as that leg goes down, your body is just staying right here. We want to be gaining momentum as that leg's going down, because now we're pretty much just stepping and throwing. This leg lift didn't really do anything for us because we just got right back to here. We want to use that leg lift. So we want to think about as this leg is coming up and it gets to about 70% height, we want the hips to start going forward. So that way, as the leg gets to 100% of its height, we're already in motion. And then we're already gaining ground during leg descent then. Another thing that's going to help us gain ground during our descent is if the glove doesn't go straight down, but we think about getting this elbow to come up. So if the elbow comes up, that's going to have the forearm and the glove remain higher up. And that will get us into a stronger position as well. Because we're not going to be hunched over, the glove's not going to be down low. We're going to be everything a lot higher up. Let's think of someone on the team. I don't know names still. Okay. Notice how this glove is up here. It's in a stronger position. Let's look at let's see, Jay. That will... Look at Kellan here. Yes, his glove is low, but notice how it works up. Starts low, but then it works up. We get to you, you're still down here. Yeah, you're working up, but it never really gets that far up. So if we said right about here, the distance before your foot's about to hit the ground is rather similar to the distance of which Kellan's about to hit the ground, but just look how much more his glove has been able to get back up and strong versus where yours really ever gets to. So that's what it means to have a strong glove path. So a lot of the stuff that we're thinking about is just strength-wise. Weight back so we can start strong and stay strong. Glove path gets strong. And then gaining ground as our leg descends, that's going to help us create a lot of power as well. So everything that we're trying to do is just help you create more power within your delivery.